Okay, as a Hakdama l'Shvuos and Pashas Bamidbar, so we have happens often. We have two things coming together. You know, there's a song that'll be the focus. Baruch Elokeinu shabra'anu l'chvoidai v'hivdi lanu min ha'toyim v'nosan lanu Torah's emes. Torah is called emes. It's la amita shel davar, no option to it. And as you know, that emes, why is it always called emes? Because emes is pshat, you cannot exaggerate. Anything that you say as an exaggeration is already not emes. Ma'akot shabrichu, since he is a kol yachal, any exaggeration that you say is emes, because he could do anything. That's number one. So, but I really wanted to focus on, it's really two things coming together. Of course, with the Maisa about the Chazon Ish coming up in a second before you fall asleep. Then it's, so first let me just go in the pasuk. It says, So as Reish B'nai Yisrael l'mishpachaisam l'beis havaisam. What's the word of l'mishpachaisam and what's the word of l'beis havaisam? So l'mishpachaisam. So there are people who teaches l'mishpachaisam miloshin sefacheni no, which means loshin devekus, and l'beis havaisam is side hachachma shenikra Abba. And why Abba exclusive? Because Abba is the shirish of everything. Because you have the Aleph, which is Hashem Echad, and you have the Beis, which is the Shinoi of the Echad. This is the changing into Hai Alma. And then you go back to the Aleph, which will be La'asid Lavai, which is also comes from Aleph to Aleph. We're going to get to the Aleph Beis, which is unbelievable Zachar that happened with the Aleph Beis. I call it the magic of the Aleph Beis. Some of the things I said already, and something, I don't know if I see it in my sefer, so I must have said it at one point. But just in case, it's kedai to say it, because most people don't know it. But before that, there was a Maisa with the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish, as you know, was a Gadol Hadar. He lived in Bnei Brak. Came to him a bacher from Europe after the war, totally tzbrachin. His name was Rabbi Yankov Galinsky, a well-known mashpia in Bnei Brak, and he came, he said he's a broken soul, he lost his family, he lost everything, he has nothing, and he's miyayish and hay alma, he doesn't want to do anything, he just doesn't want to be here anymore. He's mamish in a state of complete yish. What should he do? So the Chazon Ish looks at him and he says, you know, I had here a din Torah right before you came in, which seemingly has no shaykhis. But now I see that you came in. Obviously, there's no such thing as coincidence. So I'm going to tell you the Din Torah what it was about, and you'll see how it's related. And it's just Siyata D'Shmai that you just walked in now. He says, what was the story? There was a couple, a family who lived in Bnei Brak, and their business was that the husband would go to Chutz La'aretz for many months at a time, and he'd secure all his contacts for business. And then they would sell it to the different, whatever the product was, to different stores in Eretz Yisrael. And then she would go around collecting the money. And, there was no credit cards in those days, anything like that. So she would run around. She had a huge pocketbook filled with tons of money. And she would go collecting. And if they didn't pay, she would take a mashkin from them. That was what she did. She had a big, huge pocketbook with her full of cash and valuables. She went shopping in the grocery store. While she's going up the steps, she fell down and she got hurt. So they called the ambulance, or if you could say Hatzalah, or Hatzalas Nefashis, now is politically incorrect or whatever. But anyways, so they called the ambulance, they took her to the hospital, and she was better, she fell down, she got hurt a little bit, she got some drinks, she went home. She comes home, and then all of a sudden she sees that her whole pocketbook with all her money and everything is in there, it's lost. So she had major chalishas hadash, she was mamish miyayish on it, she went back and she looked all over, wasn't there. So she called her husband to tell him. He says, I just want to tell you, he said, don't give up, you never know, we live in a frum place, maybe somebody will find it and be honest and return it, go put up signs, you never know. A few days later, somebody calls up, he found the package, but he tells her, listen, if you lost such an amount of money in such a public area, it was like a big supermarket, you are 100% miyayish from it, and since you yish bailem, I'm kaina, and I have a bunch of kids that I have to marry off. So 1,000% it's my money. I'm not giving back to you 1 penny. I'm kind of it. You are miyayish from it. And the lady says, and not true. I wasn't miyayish, and I put up signs. And the guy says, no, not true. Besides, I need the money much more than you. I have kids to marry off. You're already settled. You don't need it so much. My money. So she said, the guy was a Yirei Shamayim. We'll go to Din Torah. We'll go to the Chazon. So they come to the Chazon. Obviously, he knew Kol Torah Kula, and he says they went back and forth. After a while, Chazon thinks it over, and he says the whole entire money belongs to the lady. The man has no right to it. He says, why? He says, because since Mashakana Ishakana Baila, and the husband is a Medina Sayyam, and he does not have the ability to be miyayish on it, and he taka wasn't, because he told his wife to go put up the signs. So even if she was miyayish on it, he was never miyayish on it, and then it's yir shalom midas. Is in a year, she paskin like a bayal kagam. Memela, it goes all back to the lady. Because she was not a bailim to be miyayish. Says the Chazon Ish, Rabbi Yankel Galinsky, you're coming here, Omer Yoyish, and your life is so difficult and you lost everything in Europe. He says, your life is not yours to be miyayish on. You have no right to be miyayish. It's Yir Shalom Midas. And Yir Shalom Midas doesn't count. And therefore, you go be mechazik yourself, the Rabban Shalom who gave you a neshama tahira, who helped you survive the war and everything else. And you go and learn shtak and you'll vaksais and kachava. The point of the story is that Rabban Shalom runs the world as exact. And now I wanted to show you that we said Lashon Dveikos Sifachenina, that's Mishbechaisam, Laveis Havaisam. We know we said it's coming from Abba. Abba is the first of the spheres that has a tiny drop of Gilui in this world. Kesef we know is completely Behelim. We see in the Aleph Beis, Abba is made up of Aleph Beis Aleph. So now, we know I started off saying, so the first part I've said before, although it's always good to hear it. As you know, Chaysamai Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Emes, and Emes in Mispar Katan is Aleph, Mem, Tav, which comes out to Aleph is 1, Mem is 4, Tav is 4, is 9, right? And 9, no matter how many times you multiply 9, always comes back to 9. Right? 9 times 2 is 18, 8 and 1. 9 times 3 is 27, 7 and 2 is 9. Everything always comes back to 9. Right? Now the Torah, as you know, started off with what? With Bereshis, with a base. Right? So now we established that Ois 9, Ois Tes is Merames Emes. Now if you start from this, I've said many times. The next part I said a few times, not as many, and the third part I hardly ever said, which is the most unbelievable. So this part is the Torah started with a base, as opposed with an aleph. What's the siman l'davar? Because if you go through the aleph base, you go aleph, base, gimel, and you multiply it. Aleph plus base is 3, plus gimel is 6, right? What is sheker in Mispar Katan? Shin is 3. Kuf is 1, Reish is 2, is 6. So you know that when things add up to sheker, to 6 is sheker, has no kiyum. Right? So now if you go through the entire Aleph base, starting from Aleph, 3 letters at a time. Why 3? Klas klilim b'klas. Rabban Shalom set up the whole world, opposites, and a kava machriya. So now you're going through each one. So if you're starting from Aleph base Gimel, it'll come out to 6. Just as a mashal, to go one more, Dalet, Hey, and Vav. How much is Dalet and Hey? Is 9, right? Plus Vav is 15. 5 and 1 is 6. Is Vaita Sheker. Now, if you start from Ois Beis, it'll come out Emes. How is that going to work? Beis Gimel Dalet. Beis and Gimel is 2 and 3 is 5. Plus Dalet is 9. Right? So you see that if you start from Beis, every 3 letters will come out to 9. And just to take it one step further, we did Beis, Gimel, Dalet. Now go Hey, Vav, Zayin. Hey and Vav is 11. Plus Zayin is 18. So 8 and 1 is 9. And you go through the entire Aleph Beis. You could try it afterwards. and you'll see that every 3 letters, if you start from Aleph, it'll come out Mispar Katan 6, and if you go from Beis and you go Mispar Katan, will always come out to 9, which is Emes. These things I've said, I don't know if you've heard them, if you remember them, but anyhow, it's Nerva Ayim just that. And then the last thing is the most half of a fella. Take any Hebrew word that has a shirish in the Torah, and it'll come out to 9. Lamashal. I don't know if I've told you this before. Let's take a word. Take Shalom. Okay? I'm just random. Okay? I never tried this one, but let's try. Shalom is how much? It's 376. Correct? So you take 376. What's the Mispar Katan of 376? It's 16. 7 and 3 is 10 plus 6 is 16. Right? Now take the 376, the total gematria, and deduct from it that Mispar Katan. So you take 376 minus 16 is how much? Is 360. 360. How much is 3 and 6? 9. Take any other thing you want. Take any. I'm just doing it on a name. Take the word Torah. Okay? How much is Torah? 612. Everybody knows that one, right? 611. Sorry. Plus the 2. Okay. 611. How much is, what's the Mispar Katan of 611? Is 8. So take 611 minus 8 leaves you with 603. How much is 6 and 3? 9. Always comes back to 9. You could do it, take any word in the Torah, shows you the Amita Shel Torah, there's no going away from it. You could call it the magic of the Aleph base. The Rebbeinu Shalom created the, obviously it's not my word, otherwise I'd have Ruach HaKodesh. But I'm saying, just saying it over is so nerva ayim. You see the Amita Shel Davar, and even if you take the modern Hebrew words, it won't work. Try televizia, I don't know how to spell it, but right? It won't work. But I'm just saying, so you see here, Mamish, how every Nekuda Achas we learned about, Nekudas we learned about, Timing we learned about, everything is like Oiske Cheshbon, Kechut HaSayro, Kamalei Nima, whatever you want to call it, but it shows you how everything is Torah's Emes. And now you could go into Shavuos, which as we know, is the Yom Hadin of Limud HaTorah. And since we all are learning Torah, how much Geshmak we're going to get out of it, and how much Siyata D'Shmaya we're going to get it. We should have Siyata D'Shmaya to learn right Pshat and not wrong Pshat, or whatever else that goes with it. And the Eka is that you should come out La'amida Shel Torah. And on that note, may we all have a Chag Kosher V'Sameach and a good Shabbos.